Okay, so here's my second video. I'm not 100% sure which one I'm going to upload because I want to keep this under 10 minutes. But I'm at a park in Portland where there was a gunfight between gangbangers a couple days ago. And people would argue what is or is not a WROL situation. They would claim that it's a situation where there's no government services. Okay. There's another video I posted, had some volunteers from a church that are going around here, probably unarmed, to diffuse any situation if somebody starts looking at somebody hard or thinking they have a problem. There is no major heavy-handed police presence. I would say that right now, this is a WRL situation from the standpoint that there isn't a cop on every corner, okay? Are they a few minutes away? Probably. Is there an undercover guy around here somewhere? Maybe. Okay. I can tell you this: undercover guys don't run around with their house dog and their toddlers. Okay. So combatants tend to not do that either. So so I would say there isn't a cop around every corner, but there's not exactly some heavy-handed rule of law here either. Okay. We've got a law posted here. Don't pick the flowers at the park because there's a $500 fine. Now, people aren't picking the flowers. Is it because there's a cop supervising them right now, or is it because they still understand right from wrong? I would say they still understand right from wrong, and there's no major, great big incentive to pick the flowers. Okay, and if aliens were to come down from space and say they'll pay $1 million for every flower, okay, maybe, I don't know. But I think there's a real misperception when somebody thinks that everybody's concept of right from wrong changes under a WRL situation. And I personally know people who lived in the Balkans during the Civil War there. Got a lot of friends who came back from Iraq. I know a few Middle Eastern people that have been there. Know some Israelis that decided to leave the Middle East because they didn't want to be involved in a conflict. I know some Arab people who left the Middle East because they didn't want to be involved in a conflict. And if aspects of that conflict were to follow them here to their communities, would they mobilize? Probably, okay, to a degree. But they would also probably mobilize some sort of a negotiation and peacekeeping effort among each other's communities too. And you don't want to discount that under a disaster WRL situation where people mobilize volunteers for things. And I can tell you that I've published survival videos. Some people out there know who I really am. They know what my background is. If somebody wants to go game on with me or somebody I care about in the wrong way, they're in for some hurt, or they better just leave fucking town. Okay, I can say that right now. But in a WRL situation where there isn't a cop around every corner, people still know right from wrong. And if you are not trying to accomplish military objectives, I think you need to behave like you're not trying to accomplish military objectives, especially in a situation where there are opposing groups of combatants around, because if you present yourself as a combatant and you encounter one of the groups of combatants and they don't perceive you as one of their people, they may choose to perceive you as one of the opposing factions. Now, just like this park, there was some alleged gang conflict out here a few weeks ago. I'm sorry, a few days ago. Right now, I'm not dressed as a combatant. I wouldn't want to be, okay? A lot of other people wouldn't want to be, but if I were to try to walk from one side of this town to the other dressed as a combatant, with what some of the guys are recommending somebody have around all the time, or have just because there isn't a cop around every corner, I could tell you a SWAT team would show up and probably be real fucking curious. Now, I know people who do the open carry movement. I personally, a part of me applauds it. Another part of me says that it's kind of a looking for trouble situation. although I understand the concept, I'm just not into upsetting everybody around, okay, with thinking that there's a combatant type situation going on. On the other hand, you know, it's usually handguns, not long guns. And for somebody to say, yeah, you got to have your long gun in a shit hit the fan situation because the cops aren't around every corner to answer your call, you know, I can tell you that I don't want to call the cops for every problem. These people don't want to call the cops for every problem. They got church volunteers that'll go around and kind of diffuse little problems with people. And here they already mobilize for disaster preparedness and making sure people will eat, making sure some people will have at least some basic medical care and warmth if there's a disaster. And I would not want to participate in any activities that inhibit that during a disaster or shit hit the fan situation. And likewise, in a economic crash type situation, I really think that a lot of the people who like to throw that phrase around of essential government services are throwing that phrase around as a means of self-justification for how much they cost society in their salaries, in their in what they charge us for their services, their salaries, the taxes. And I really think that a lot of people are talking about essential government services have a little bit too high of a opinion of themselves with regard to how much of the economy they're taking from everybody else. And that, yeah, I think that a little bit of the people who want to talk about shit hit the fan preparation are carrying a little too much of that attitude into saying, well, without essential government services, you know, the sun's going to stop shining or something like that. I just don't agree. But the other thing is that, you know, if I were to imagine right now where people didn't have gas, where people didn't have power, where the fountain were to stop and people were to say, oh, we need to use this water for washing or something like that, you know, it doesn't mean that you need to go on every grocery shopping trip with an AK over your shoulder. And if you want to be prepared for sudden, unpredictable attacks on the part of somebody at all times, you need to be carrying a handgun. But even in a disaster situation, long guns got to be out of sight and out of mind. And if you are not attempting to accomplish combat military objectives, you got to keep that stuff out of sight and out of mind in order not to be perceived as a combatant by most of the people around, whether they're going to be hostile or friendly. You don't want them to think that you're a combatant, and if they do, they're instantly going to start taking sides, and you might even be creating a conflict when there isn't a conflict. And that's one of my responses that I'm going to check about uploading.